Tonight, white smoke from the Sistine Chapel chimney confirms a new pope has been elected. We're live with the latest. Also making the headlines, the First Minister, John Swinney, says he won't back the assisted dying bill, calling it a practical decision. We'll hear from those on both sides of the debate. On the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War in Europe, people who recall the events of VE Day share their memories.
There's always tears. People died, love. People died.
Scott Cummings.
And in sport, 8 Scots are named in the British and Irish Lions squad for this summer's tour of Australia.
A lot of people watching back home, like my mum and dad and stuff, so yeah, to hear my name.
Just celebrating, crying and really happy.
I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The Catholic Church has a new pope. Cardinals in Rome have elected the Church's 267th leader. Just under an hour ago, white smoke was seen billowing from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel and loud cheers were heard from the Vatican. Vanessa Taff has the latest. So Vanessa, what do you know so far?
Well, it's all eyes on Rome tonight as we await the identity of the new Pope and for his appearance on the balcony. Now, currently, the new Pope will be getting dressed in his white papal robes and he will be preparing himself to take on the leadership role within the Catholic Church. Now, there were those famous scenes of white smoke emerging from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel just under an hour ago, and crowds were absolutely in awe. There was jubilation, cheers, as they saw that smoke and they'd gathered to witness that historic moment. Well, we have been hearing from Catholics in Scotland to get their reaction to the election of a new Pope.
First reaction is joy, surprise, I think. I wasn't expecting a white smoke signal to emerge tonight, given that there are 133 people within the Sistine Chapel who could be elected. If they've come down to one name in just on the fourth ballot, and that is someone who has got 2/3 of the vote, remember, then it means that there really has been a consensus around the new man to lead the church.
Well, this conclave only began 2 days ago, and as we've been hearing there was a lot of surprise and I suppose excitement at how quick this new election had been. Just 2 days, as we mentioned. Now, definitely a moment in history for the Catholic Church. Now, the new Pope will have to pick a new name. There could be a lot of symbolism around that. What will that signal for him and his leadership, and also for the Catholic Church? But breaking news as we come on air tonight, there's a new world leader and a new Pope.
Vanessa, thank you. The First Minister says he will vote against plans to allow terminally ill people to end their lives early. John Swinney says he agonised over his decision, taking his personal views into consideration. MSPs will vote in the Assisted Dying for Terminally Ill Adults legislation next Tuesday. We'll hear from advocates for and against. But first to our political editor Colin Mackay, who's been speaking to the country's party leaders about how they plan to vote. So Colin, what have they been saying?
Well, this vote is on a knife edge. The Scottish Parliament has voted on this before and it wasn't even close. This time I can guarantee it will be. Quite a few MSPs I've spoken to thought that early on in this process there might be quite a groundswell of support for this bill. But as time has gone on, as they've been lobbied by constituents and interest groups, it seems to have got tighter. Although tonight, both sides still think that the margin will be in favour of it going through. But today, the First Minister gave us his position.
I can't support the legislation. I'll vote against it on Tuesday because I am concerned that it will fundamentally change the relationship between patients and doctors in a detrimental way. I am concerned that vulnerable individuals in our society who may feel that they are a burden to their loved ones or to society, that they may opt to end their life prematurely. And lastly, I am concerned that the legislation will not protect us from the scope of this legislation being extended, and I think that would be regrettable.
You've clearly agonised on this. Is it down to politics? Is it down to faith?
I cannot separate who I am from the judgments that I make. I'm a man of faith. I believe that all of us are created equally in the eyes of God, and I obviously have a family situation where my wife has a terminal condition, and that is an issue that I wrestle with. It's part of me and part of us. So I can't separate that from the judgment that I've made.
I've got serious concerns about this legislation, and that's why at stage one I've still not yet decided how I'll vote. There might be an inclination to vote for it in order that it reaches stage two, so a fuller debate takes place. But as things stand, I haven't yet decided.
Instead of this approach, we should be looking at how we properly deliver quality palliative care across the country, and I do have concerns with the legislation, so I'll be voting against it.
Among other party leaders, well, the Greens' Patrick Harvie and Lorna Slater will be voting for it, so will the Lib Dem leader Alex Cole-Hamilton, but Albaz Ashregan will be voting against it. And as you heard there, it's not an easy decision for some of them to make. It will be a free vote for all 120 MSPs. It will be a conscience vote. Not all of them have decided how they're going to vote. There will be a few consciences wrestled with over the next few days, and that could just tip the balance on Tuesday.
Colin at Holyrood, thank you. Well, away from Holyrood, our reporter Selina Jackson has been speaking to people on both sides of the debate about what matters to them at the end of life and what they hope the outcome of this momentous vote will be.
I've had a lot of time to think about my own condition, and I don't try to look at the negative things of it, but you can't, after 20 years, avoid not hearing things or reading things. And I do know that my life could turn out very badly in the end. It certainly made me realise that I wanted to have that choice.
Rona doesn't know whether she would ever opt for an assisted death, but says having the option would give her peace of mind.
When you're diagnosed with an illness, where maybe it's short term, that you don't have long left to live, you could have maybe 3 months of still enjoying life, but knowing at the end of it you're not going to have to go through that horrific, not being able to breathe, being in agony. Well, I just think that would make people feel so much better. And I just think it opens up choices. And choices here are extremely important.
But not everyone agrees introducing assisted dying would be a positive.
So you were on this ward for 6 months, is that right?
6 months.
5 years ago, Alexander Brodie was admitted to St Margaret's Hospice after reaching the end of his treatment options for a rare form of blood cancer.
Really, my life was to be measured in days rather than months. To think that when a whole team, including 2 or 3 consultants, thought that there was nothing more they could do for me, this would be a correct judgment. And I find it extraordinarily interesting what happened next.
Alexander spent more than 4 years in the hospice before returning home to his wife. He believes that instead of assisted dying, there should be more focus on end-of-life care.
If this bill goes through and something is being done by government in terms of providing the facility of assisted dying, then that takes one's eye over the large question of how palliative care should be provided, not for the few who get into a hospice, but for the country, so that palliative care becomes an important part of the work of the National Health Service.
And you can watch that full report on Scotland Tonight at 8:30 this evening on STV and the STV player. On the 8th of May 1945, 6 years of war in Europe came to an end. Today, 80 years on, the country has been paying tribute to those who served in the Second World War and those who lost their lives for our freedom. Our senior reporter Gordon Cree has been meeting people who recall the events of 8 decades ago.
Run, rabbit, run, rabbit, run, run, run.
A wartime song at the Life Care Day Centre in Edinburgh helps bring back memories for a group who were children. For some, looking back on that time evokes thoughts of loved ones lost in conflict.
There's always tears. People died, love. People died.
For others, the recollections centre on keeping safe from air raids.
Oh, you knew what it was, and you had to run through the stair and into the shed, into the, what do you call it, the shelter.
David's now 96 and grew up not far from Clydebank, which saw heavy bombing. Despite that, he says, as a teenager, it wasn't frightening.
It was just exciting because we were quite young, and we had an air raid shelter in the garden, which was a brick air raid shelter. It wasn't one of the Anderson shelters, which were dug down. It was a brick shelter, and whenever there was an alert, we would move out to the brick shelter in the garden. We had a Bofors anti-aircraft gun at the corner of the street. And after the air raid, of course, there were bits of shrapnel lying about on the ground. And sometimes, if a bomb got through, bits of the bomb. And of course, it was a great game for the young lads going out and collecting these bits and then comparing them when we went to school the next day.
As the years pass, fewer veterans who served in the war remain. Being honoured at the Poppy Scotland factory today, Margaret is now 99. She signed up to work in the Royal Navy Post Office dealing with mail for sailors.
I was walking along George Street and the firm I was working with, and I walked in and I thought, we need you. And I thought, that sounded interesting. So I went in and registered, and of course I had a 3 weeks, went to Glasgow and I had a 3 weeks sort of training and whatnot. Then I was sent down to London to see where I would be going. And then after I was in London, they said, right, you're going to Lowestoft.
And when you were involved, it must have been, for someone as young as you were, quite
18.
Yeah, quite a thing.
I thought it was very growing up.
Yeah, and to know you were part of this massive effort.
Yes.
Today at midday, exactly 8 decades since the war officially ended in Europe, a national 2-minute silence was observed. This was the Scottish Parliament. While in London, the King and Queen were among those attending a Thanksgiving service at Westminster Abbey. The events of 1945 are closer now to being beyond many people's living memories, making it all the more vital we do remember them. Gordon Cree, STV News.
The UK has struck a deal with the United States to reduce tariffs on steel and cars, the first country to do so since Donald Trump imposed sweeping taxes on imports. The deal does not cover other industries, leaving Scotland's major exports, including whisky and salmon, still facing 10% levies. However, it has been hailed by leaders on both sides of the Atlantic.
Please do not underestimate the significance of the tariff reductions today, because these are measured in thousands of good, well-paid jobs across the country. And that really matters. That's at the heart of everything that I believe in. And I believe that serious, pragmatic, in-the-room negotiations acting in the national interest are far better than performative politics, people slamming the door, floundering out, being performative but not actually delivering for working people. And I'll continue in the same vein. We've had 2 trade deals this week by acting in that way.
A judge has told a teenage killer who stabbed a schoolboy, "You will live with this for the rest of your life," as he detained him for 5 years. The boy was 13 when he killed 16-year-old Corey McCrimmon last May. The pair, associated with rival gangs, had fallen out over £50. Their fight over social media escalated into a confrontation in a park in Glasgow's East End. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
Family and friends of Corey McCrimmon comfort each other outside court. The 16-year-old was killed in this Glasgow park. The boy who inflicted the single fatal blow was 13.
I described this previously as utter madness, and I stand by that description.
The now 14-year-old pled guilty in March to the lesser charge of culpable homicide while acting under provocation. The tragic events of last May spiralled when the boy refused to pay back £50 to Corey. Insults were traded between their rival gangs. Violence followed. Taunts and threats escalated on social media ahead of the planned confrontation. The High Court heard a large number of boys and girls had assembled here that night. Many had been drinking. The 13-year-old was part of a gang who had entered the park with bats, batons and knives. During the fight, the 13-year-old stabbed Corey once in the chest. The 16-year-old later died in hospital.
You will have to live with that for the rest of your life. I told you before that you've delivered a life sentence of grief and profound loss to your victim's family. I've read the letters and victim impact statements handed to me, and they are heartbreaking.
Lord Mulholland also acknowledged the role social media played in this case, with teen gang members appearing to egg each other on in anticipation of a fight.
Violence reduction requires all of us in Scotland to play our part, be it parents or police officers, from youth workers to social workers. And so it is time to double down in our efforts to reduce violence in Scotland and to make sure that we reduce the risk of this ever happening again.
The 14-year-old has been detained for 5 years. Lord Mulholland explained at length the factors involved in reaching this sentence, including the boy's age, circumstances of the crime and his capacity for change. The teenager's lawyer described this case as a tragic waste of human life and told the court the 14-year-old has an insight into the devastating consequences his actions have had. Sharon Frew, STV News at the High Court in Glasgow.
The brother of a Scot detained in India says he's extremely disappointed following a meeting with the Foreign Secretary to discuss efforts to bring him home. Jagtar Singh Johal was arrested in 2017 in connection with terror-related offences. His brother says no progress has been made since March.
I was extremely disappointed. I came here with high hopes after the last meeting. I am now going to have to go back to Dumbarton tonight, explain to Jagtar's wife, my kids, my dad, as to how disappointing the meeting was.
And more on that breaking story that a new Pope has been elected. The new Pope is about to appear in public for the first time. His name is Robert Prevost. The 69-year-old has chosen the papal name Leo XIV. He is from Chicago in America. We'll have more on this breaking story in the STV Late News and, of course, on ITN following this programme. Now, Raman's here with all the sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Spring Sale.
Good evening. We start with rugby, and Scotland captain Sione Tuipulotu admits he thought his dream of being named in the British and Irish Lions squad had been dashed due to injury. Tuipulotu is one of 8 Scottish players named in the 38-man squad for the tour to Australia this summer. Edinburgh winger Duhan van der Merwe says he is shocked to be included in the squad for a second time. Jamie Borthwick reports.
Scott Cummings.
This is how it feels to become a Lion.
Xander Fagerson.
As the 36 players to represent Britain and Ireland were announced, 8 Scots discovered that they had been handed the honour of wearing the famous red jersey this summer.
Just to hear my name, you know, especially my last name, because I know a lot of people are watching back home, like my mum and dad and stuff, so sorry. To hear my name, and forever knowing my mum and dad are watching as well, so it was a special feeling.
Were you fearing that I might not be fit for this?
Yeah, no doubt, mate. The fact that it was a Lions year, and I'll be blatantly honest, mate, I thought it was over for me.
Really close with Sione, you know, I've spoken to him a lot over the last 5 weeks with me being injured, especially when he was injured at the time. You know, we phoned each other quite a lot because, you know, that was quite a tough period for him. When I heard him say his name, I was obviously very happy for him, but at the same time, I knew that V is just after him, so when I heard my name, you know, obviously very happy.
Joining Tuipulotu and van der Merwe in the squad to tour Australia are international stars Finn Russell and Blair Kinghorn, Edinburgh's Pierre Schumann, and Glasgow Warriors Scott Cummings, Xander Fagerson and Hugh Jones.
I texted my wife first. I knew she would have been at home stressing.
And I didn't call her straight away. I texted her saying, "Oh, we've got to do media stuff, and I don't want to call you because I'm going to start crying." But I called her just then, and
started crying.
Well, just a special feeling.
We were just celebrating, crying and really happy. And then some of our family and friends sent the video that there was a shoe at the end. It was quite cool.
Peer Schoolman, Edinburgh Rugby and Scotland.
Get some shoes going there and down under in Australia. Get some hard carries and tackles going.
Yeah, I was just, obviously I was sort of counting through the names. There's a lot of people starting with C around there, and so I was just sort of waiting, obviously going through the alphabet, and when it hit, I was like, wow.
Captained by England's Maro Itoje, the British and Irish Lions face Argentina in Dublin in June before flying down under for the 9-match tour, culminating in 3 historic tests against the Wallabies. Games that each of these proud Scots will be desperate to play their part in. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
Can't wait for that tour. Now, Hearts interim boss Liam Fox has told the players the club's next head coach in waiting could be watching their performances from now until the end of the season. Kilmarnock manager Derek McInnes is a contender for the Tynecastle hot seat. Not for the first time this season, Liam Fox has been placed in interim charge following another sacking at Tynecastle. While Hearts' campaign has fallen flat, the search for a new head coach is ramping up. Derek McInnes is being seriously considered for the post. Fox had this to say on the vacancy.
It's not for me to sit here and decide and tell you what a Hearts manager. This is the club are going through a process. They'll pick the right person that they think has the qualities that they need to lead the football club. What I can say is it's a brilliant job. It's a brilliant football club, brilliant set of supporters. Some really good staff members in and around the building. They've got brilliant facilities here, so it's a brilliant job for whoever gets it.
And ahead of the visit of Motherwell on Saturday, the interim boss had this message for the underperforming players.
The new guy or she or whoever comes in is watching and will be aware and will look back. So every opportunity when you play for this football club is a chance to impress people.
Danny Armstrong is a player former Hearts boss Neil Critchley tried to sign in January on a pre-contract. The Kilmarnock winger, who earlier in the season rejected a new deal at Killie, is out of contract in the summer. How strong was the Hearts' interest, Danny?
Strong. It was what it was. It was just whatever they thought it was. But my decision was I want to stay at Kilmarnock.
Derek had said that when the new contract was offered, it was looking likely that you were going to try something new. Is that how you're feeling now?
It's just about seeing what comes at the end of the season, even from Kilmarnock, whatever it is. If there's another offer to be put down, there's not been an offer put down since the last one, and being the gaffer clearing that. It's a scary time for everyone. I've got a young family, so it's about taking your time and making the right decision.
Brendan Rodgers says he wants his players to train like animals from now until the final game of the season, the Scottish Cup final against Aberdeen. Following Celtic's draw against Rangers, Rodgers is set to make changes this weekend. They are aiming to complete the treble. And finally, Scott McTominay's cult hero status with Napoli fans has reached a whole new level. The Scotland midfielder, who has taken to Serie A by storm, received a special talk from a superfan with McFratum on the back, which translates as McBro.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Spring Sale.
Thinking we should get your name on the back rather than McKay, McDiddy.
Probably fit. Fair enough. Probably fit. Thanks, Roman. Sean, how's the weather?
Today's forecast: blue skies, followed by a spread of hot and cold plates. TUI sponsors STV weather.
Hello there, another pleasant day out there. Lots of sunshine, temperatures 18 degrees. It will be even warmer tomorrow and a lot of fine weather's here to stay. However, just a little weather front coming in on Sunday will bring in a bit more cloud and the risk maybe around Colin Tyree of some outbreaks of rain. But then next week that high pressure just moves right back over the top of us. So we're just back to settled weather. So staying dry for most of us for the foreseeable. So tonight, dry, clear spells after that pleasant day. But again, like the last couple of nights, there will be the odd spot that gets a wee bit chillier. Parts of Lanarkshire down to maybe 3-4 degrees Celsius, parts of Stirlingshire as well. Tomorrow, not much to say other than another dry day with plenty of sunny spells. One thing to note, of course, is the UV levels are now getting much, much higher. Just a few weeks now, maybe 6 weeks away from the summer solstice. So actually that UV getting very high and your sunburn time down to about 30 minutes or less now. Top temperatures tomorrow about 19-20 degrees Celsius, so feeling just a little bit warmer than it has been today. So a lovely day to come. Saturday, plenty of dry, sunny, warm weather again. Temperatures up to about 19 or 20 degrees Celsius. Here's the weather front that just brings a wee bit of a change on Sunday. The risk of some showery outbreaks of rain coming in parts of the Hebrides. But for most of us, still pleasant and bright before that high pressure comes right back over the top of us once again next week.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
That is your STV News. We leave you with pictures from the Vatican, where Robert Prevost has been elected the new Pope on the second day of the conclave. The American will be known as Pope Leo XIV.